Well, good day to you and a very warm welcome to the first edition of the Runkara International Half Marathon. It's Sunday, the 8th of October 2023, and we are in Ankara, the capital of Turkey, the country which this year celebrates its 100th anniversary of the founding. The country, of course, founded by the Mustafa Kemal Atatürk back in 1923. Well, this Ankara International Half Marathon has been 2 years in the making. It's the brainchild of Victoria Blythe, who after those 2 years of negotiations with the city authorities and many other bodies got things over the line, and the athletes, the elite fields and the 7,000 other runners who are, the 4,000 rather, other runners taking part in the various distance races today are ready to get going. The elite fields very strong indeed. They start at 8 a.m. local time in about 6 or 7 minutes from now. And Bethwell Biwott Yegon, the 30-year-old Kenyan, is very much amongst the favourites, best of just inside 61 minutes for the half marathon. Anything around 60 minutes is supreme world class for men over the half marathon distance. For women, well, 70 minutes is really the benchmark of world class running, and if you can get under 70 minutes by a few minutes, you are in the top 10 or 15 in the world. My name's Tim Hutchings. Be with you now for the next couple of hours for this coverage of this groundbreaking event in a city which has had one or two running events in the past, but nothing of an international scale, nothing that has been televised on national TV, as this is going out on Turkish TV this morning, and with international fields of really high calibre. The family fun run yesterday was just over 900 metres. They had about 700 running in that. I think mums and dads and kids having a fabulous time in the sunshine. Glorious weather, by the way. The early October weather here in Turkey is slightly better than usual. It's quite magnificent. And has been for the last few days, actually. So the start of the race today is in Anıt Park, just 3 kilometres away from the finish here at the Congressium Conference Centre. There you can see the route of the main half marathon. They do 2.5 laps of that circuit around Anıt Park, and then head out on the long strip towards the finish, out through past 10 kilometres and 15 kilometres. There's a few lumps and bumps. It's not a super fast course. It will be challenging, but it will demand real racing nous from the elite athletes. The first wave that gets underway in a few minutes' time is about 50 strong, and the racing promises to be very, very intense. Up at the front end, there is good prize money as well for these athletes. Nervous moments these for all these athletes, of course. The autumn season of racing got underway just last week at the World Road Running Championships. That was in Latvia, in Riga, and what a great day of racing that was. You saw there some of the main protagonists coming up in these races. The elite field on the men's side, well, perhaps topped by Cimdesa Debelu Gudeta of Ethiopia, who's only 20 years old, but he's run 60:15, his lifetime best. That was a couple of years ago in Trento. Bethwell Yegon we saw just now. He's a 30-year-old Kenyan, 10 years older, 10 years wiser and harder training perhaps. That could be a real contest to watch. Sise Lemakasaye of Ethiopia is a 32-year-old. His personal best just outside 61 minutes. It was a few years ago. But like many of these athletes here, committed road racers, never raced on the track. He is more of a marathon runner, is Sise Lema. Average of his 10 best marathons is 2:05, can you believe? He was the London Marathon winner 2 years ago in 2021. Ramazan Özdemir of Turkey, the 32-year-old, goes in this one too. He's a 63-minute runner. As is so often the case when you come to races in Europe, the local runners are a little bit slower than the best East Africans.
You are a little bit anxious and excited. How do you feel today, and what would you like to say about the race?
I just want to say that this has been a 2-year project in the making. We are all, of course, excited, nervous, And we just want it to be a safe race, which is the most important thing, making sure that all the runners are safe, making sure the elite athletes are safe, and we want people to enjoy themselves. This is the first international half marathon in Ankara, capital of Turkey, and where better place to have it than by Anıtkabir. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. We are so excited about it. And we are very blessed. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved in this project, from the government to the police, to the volunteers, to the sponsors, to the partners. Çok teşekkürler.
As you told, this is the first time held in Ankara, this race. What's your expectation for the next years?
I believe that we will host many. I don't like using the word hope. I believe that we will host many events, inshallah, with the support of the people and the government.
Victoria, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you so much. Çok teşekkürler. Çok teşekkürler. Thank you.
Victoria Blythe there being interviewed by the local television and the man on the public address down at the start area. She has been the driving force behind this event and has put an enormous amount of her personal resources into getting this through, as is usually the case, trying to break down resistance that is very often meant for the best reasons, or put in place for the best reasons. You have to persuade authorities and carry them with you. And Victoria, the perfect person for doing that. There she is in white, just keeping warm. It's perfect running conditions, frankly. At the moment, it's about 12 degrees centigrade here in Ankara. The athletes will love these conditions. I'm not sure they will love some aspects of the course. It is quite challenging. Quite a few hills in the opening half. Then it flattens out in the third quarter. And then towards the finish, they cross a couple of bridges in the city centre, road bridges, and those will create some real tactical opportunities for these elite athletes in the latter stages. We expect great racing here. This is not a course designed for super fast times. It's a course designed to get these athletes around 21.1 kilometers of this city circuit safely, with numbers due to grow in years to come. They've certainly built in potential to this course, and they need to ensure that this one works and that it will work for races to come in years ahead. The best of the women will look for Rosalita Jepkita of Bahrain, former Kenyan. She's a 68-minute performer, 68.40 she ran in The Hague earlier on this year. That was back in March, actually. And Sultan Haydar, former Ethiopian of Turkey, has run just outside 70 minutes. She's the big local hope, the 36-year-old. Look out for Meryem Erdogan too, of Turkey. 33-year-old has run a 70.16. That was last year in Istanbul, in the Istanbul half marathon course. Istanbul, the huge city of Turkey with over 20 million population, some massive events. They're great half marathon and marathon every year in Istanbul. But even though this city, Ankara, is 6.5 million strong, it is a city that doesn't yet have a major running event. Well, it will do as of a couple of minutes' time when this race gets underway, when this small but high-caliber elite field gets racing. Dignitaries, of course, ready for the off. There was a gala dinner on Friday night at which ambassadors from all 36 countries who've got representatives in the race were invited. Just about ready to get going. Look out for Faith Chepkoech too. She's run 3 very quick 10Ks this year, 31 and 32 minutes, those races. Well, the shadows are shortening as the sun climbs in the skies of Ankara, and they are underway. This first international half marathon of Ankara's history. The Runkara, beautifully named, play on words, and racing is happening on the streets of Ankara. A historic moment for the city, for the sport of running in these parts. Let's not forget that Turkey is a massive nation, 85 million souls in Turkey, and running is growing all the time. Well, the founder of modern Turkey, which, as I said, celebrates its centenary this year, in fact on the 29th of October, just in about 3 weeks' time, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk would have approved of today's step forward for this capital city. His founding principles for the fledgling republic 100 years ago were democracy to be at the heart of everything, human rights and equal citizenship to be there as well. Now, I have to tell you that Ankara is at 900 meters altitude, so we're almost at 3,000 feet altitude. That is a factor. It makes the air here slightly thinner, slightly less oxygen with every breath you take in, which will make it a little bit more challenging perhaps for some of these athletes. Although, of course, the East Africans, well, the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, they all live at altitudes way beyond 3,000 meters, 3,000 feet rather, so this shouldn't be too much for them. And as I said, it is the Kenyans and Ethiopians who dominate, although runners from 36 nations are racing today. That gala dinner on Friday night, by the way, was quite spectacular. One of the race sponsors, the Marriott Hotel, is very close to the finish where I'm situated, which is about 3 kilometers from where the race got underway just now. And the hotel is quite the grandest I have ever stayed in. Unbelievable quality of everything. And the runners appreciate that too. I know from my history of running and attending races all over the world, the athletes love to go to races where they are looked after well, where there's great food, great facilities, silly things like comfortable pillows. They really do matter. Never mind about friendly, smiling faces everywhere you go. The expo has happened over the last couple of days and continues today for the thousands running and their families and friends, and that is here at Congressium, right next to the finish line. But the men, we understand, are due to go off at about 3:01 per kilometre. That will bring them home in about 60 minutes. And the women in 3:14 per kilometre, which will bring them home in about 70 minutes. So the ambitions of the organisers and those coordinating the elite athletes are realistic, I think. If they can get a winning time under 70 minutes today for the women, that would be fabulous. If they can get a winning time for the men anywhere near 60 minutes, bearing in mind the hills on this course and the altitude, that again would be quite marvellous. I think the important thing is that the racing is taking place, and these athletes are enjoying fine weather for their contests. Prize money, well, 5,000 euros first place prize money for men and women, goes down to 8th place, but it is good prize money for races in these parts. And of course, the women's elite field, well, they do have pacemakers. Jep Keita, as I said, is very much the favourite. Faith Chepkoech there in the dark blue. Sultan Haydar in the red there. Haydar is a former Ethiopian, actually took up Turkish nationality 15 years ago, back in February 2008, over 15 years ago. And she has a real pedigree to her name, does Haydar, with a European under-23 1,500 metres title back in 2009. And good track times, and she's a 2:24 marathon runner as well. She has a fabulous range. Ran the Olympics back in 2012 in London. Didn't really do herself justice there. In fact, she's run a couple of Olympics, London 2012, Rio 2016, and hasn't had great runs in those particular championships. You might also be able to see there Zuditu Galore. She's in the blue pants and yellow vest right in the centre there. She is very much one of the favourites. She ran 67:35 for a half marathon in Verona, where she was second back in February this year. And she's run 4 half marathons this year. That's her personal best coming in February, but she was a winner in Madrid in 67:38, very close to her lifetime best. That was only a month or so after her personal best in Verona. Well, back at the front end of the men's race, Cisse Lema is slipping into the slipstream there of the pacemaker. Paula Radcliffe, by the way, one of the ambassadors for this event, was at the start and is on her way here to the finish and is due to be joining me in the commentary booth, hopefully very soon, if she can get through the traffic and get the transport that was promised. But of course, as with all new events, there are inevitably teething issues. So we'll hear from Paula as and when she gets to me in this in this commentary booth. But for now, it's just myself you're listening to over this next period. Paula's thoughts, of course, will be absolutely fascinating. This race happening on the same day as the Chicago Marathon over in the USA and 1 or 2 other events around the world. There's never a free weekend these days. The pacemakers, well, Victor Mutai and Julius Kipchumba have been tasked with taking them out at a nice steady tempo for the first 11 kilometers. And then we understand they will probably drop out at 11K and let the racing continue. Now there you see some of the an indication of where they are on the course, coming up towards 2 kilometers with just over 6 minutes on the clock. "860 meters the altitude." Look, bottom left of your screen. So when I said 900 meters, that was a tiny fib. It's nearly 900 meters altitude, it's nearly 3,000 feet altitude. Well, 7 in this lead group beginning to ease away, and Cisse Lema is right up there, the 32-year-old. He's only ever run 3 half marathons before today officially. Of course, he's run many great marathons. He was 5th in Gothenburg back in 2015 in 62 minutes, and then won in Chonburi in 2019 in 62 minutes, and was 2nd in Diredawa back in 2021 in 61:22, although that was at altitude. He is much better known as a marathon runner, Cisse Lema, and he is very much one of the top 2 or 3 favourites here today. To the extreme left of picture there, you can see Derya Kunur of Turkey, the 24-year-old. Now, her personal best is only 74 minutes, and yet she's living with these Africans in the early stages. I expect gaps to appear fairly quickly in this women's race. They've just had to negotiate a slight incline there. As I mentioned, there are quite a few ups and downs in these early kilometers. When you look at the profile on the event map, they look huge. Of course, they are gradual climbs. I went for a jog yesterday morning with Paula Radcliffe and up past the President's Palace, and there is some very significant long hauls, up slopes and then down slopes, of course. Not a lot of super flat ground around the city. There is no major river run through the city, as is so often the case with major towns and conurbations. If there were a river, then you could bet the course would hug it, and it would be fast. Now, the pacemaker there in this men's race just accelerated Victor Mutai. I don't know if he got some sort of indication. Maybe he got to 3K and realized he wasn't going quite quick enough. Although only 8:53 on the clock now. 8:57 actually in that clock in your top right-hand corner. It's a couple of seconds ahead of my clock, but we're there or thereabouts. Let's not worry too much about that. Today is not so much about fast times as about the racing. Cisse Lema there in 2nd place really looks up for it. It's very powerfully built by the standards of most East African distance runners. He's quite chunkily muscled legs. To the left of that group is Hayasin Can of Turkey, the 24-year-old. His best is 63 minutes, 63:37. That was in Adana, back on the 8th of January this year when he finished 4th. And then he was 19th in Istanbul back in April, in 64:21. But this sort of competition, mixing it with some of the world's best, is just what these domestic athletes need. They need to be able to get in there and really be challenged. As we see a Victor Mutai with these pacemaking duties right at the front here. Jim Dessa is also there. There's a sharp U-turn there as they negotiate these first 2.5 laps of the opening loop. That was at about 3.5K, that U-turn just there. And then they'll head down and take a left-hand turn to get towards 4K. And it is a giant rectangle, the opening loop that they go round over 2 times before heading out on the long leg northwards and then swing west. Well, we'll give you splits as soon as we can when I'm getting them. At the moment, no splits available. There's that left-hand turn back onto the main loop. They've been out on a little dog leg for a few hundred meters over the last couple of minutes. Now they're back on the main loop and approaching 4K. They'll go through 4K any second. There it is. I think they've just passed 4K there now. That was in about 11:25. And if that is the case, well, they're going a lot quicker than 3:01 tempo, so don't take my estimate there too closely. Or too seriously. Paula Radcliffe just walked into the commentary booth here as we see the best of the women, and they have to be shifting now because it's becoming a single file affair in the women's race with 12 minutes on the clock. So, Paula, out of breath, or are you nice and calm?
A little bit. I'm not running quite as fast as they are, but I did have to hot-foot it.
It was 3K from the start to the finish. Don't tell me you just ran it.
No.
It's only 12 minutes on the clock.
The last little bit. I had some help from a car.
Help from a car. How do you get to station? I had some help from a car. Anyway, it is a beautiful morning for running, isn't it? Nice temperature. What is it out there now? About 13, 14 degrees, something like that?
Yeah, pretty much perfect and very, very little wind. The sun just starting to warm it up a little bit and makes the pictures look pretty, but definitely not too warm for the runners at this stage. I think it might warm up through the rest of the morning for the mass runners out there and make hydration a bit more of an issue for them to concentrate on.
One thing that's really good is the road quality of the road service is superb, isn't it? I mean, I was saying earlier a few minutes ago how you and I went for a jog yesterday, and some of the boulevards and vistas here in the city are quite magnificent, albeit there's not many flat sections, but the roads are big and wide and new. And actually, our hotel and this finish area we're in now is in this business area of the city that's to the west of the city, I think, and everything seems to be brand shining new, doesn't it?
Yeah, and including the road surface, as you said, which is very welcome, I think, when you're looking for a good smooth run and a good time out here. I think the rolling nature of the course is perhaps going to put very, very fast times a little bit out of the picture, but certainly having that nice surface to run on helps to make it easier. And you can see they're coming into a bit more of an incline now at the moment. It's nothing big all at once. It's more of a sustained drags in this course, isn't it? It's kind of a rolling nature of it all the way through, but particularly in the first half of the race.
Yeah, no, that's right. I said how it's funny because you look at the profile of the course and it looks mountainous, but of course that's stretched over 21K, and these are just very gradual inclines and downhills that they're negotiating. I saw just now towards the back of the group, number 20, Ayatullah Azlanhan of Turkey. He's just 22 years old, making his debut today. And it's really good to see domestic athletes who don't get away to travel internationally very much and perhaps don't get international competition as much as they'd like, having this opportunity to actually get out there and mix it with the best of the East Africans and at least try and challenge them for a few kilometers if they can't live with them, even if they can't live with them in the latter stages. Now there, incidentally, that is a wonderful shot of the mausoleum, built for Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, who died in 1938, but he was the founder of the modern Turkish Republic, and it's at the center of the Anıtkabir complex. It straddles a hill only 3 or 4 kilometers from the city center. It took 9 years to build and was completed back in 1953. It's one of the big tourist attractions and actually a sort of rite of passage for all Turks to go and visit Ataturk's mausoleum sometime in their lives here in Ankara. Well, the shadows are long at the moment. As I said, it is the start time was 8 in the morning. It's just gone 8:15 now, and they're motoring a bit. But I'll tell you what really strikes me about Victor Mutai here, Paula, who's a good runner in his own right, this pacemaker for the men's field. He's got a real loping, long stride, hasn't he? I suppose sometimes if you know that you're only going to run for 10 or 11K in a half marathon, you're your psyche is different because you can afford to bounce and be extravagant with your running style rather than be conservative.
Yeah, and also perhaps the reason that he's pacing is that efficiency comes into play a little bit more in the latter half, the latter stages of the race, which of course he doesn't need to worry about. There is that added pressure, isn't there, though, when you're pacing, that weight on your shoulders of getting it right without perhaps the full adrenaline flow of actually racing, which helps you to raise your performance a little bit more on the day. So I always think hats off to the pacemakers. They do a great job out there, setting it out, shielding the wind a little bit, particularly in the case of here, the pacemaker with the female athletes. It looks like it's Sultan to the fore there, and just giving them something to lock their eyes into the back of. And we said there's no wind out there today, but it still helps just to be able to focus only on the back of the runner in front of you and kind of just shut off all of that extra energy outlay and be able to just relax, concentrate on your form and save that racing energy to really come into play in the later stages of the race.
Well, this is interesting. A lot has happened in the last couple of minutes since we've been gone, because the women's elite field was, I don't know, 5 or 6 strong, and they were running in single file 5 minutes ago. But now you've got Julius Kipchumba here, the pacemaker for the women, with Sultan Haydar, the 36-year-old former Ethiopian who runs now for Turkey. Proudly been wearing the colours of Turkey around the hotel. She is right tucked into the slipstream behind Julius Kipchumba, along with my pre-race favourite, Zuditu Adoro Gelor, the 27-year-old who has a best of 67.35 from back in Verona in February. So it looks like already the lead pairing is established in the women's race. In the men's race, we've got this pack of 7 or 8 here, where the tempo seems to be good and steady. We don't yet have a split. They haven't crossed the first timing mat as yet, although they've been running for 17 minutes. And we're waiting for those splits to come through. We'll bring them for you as soon as we can. But the gaps are beginning to appear, and one athlete just dropping off the back of the group there. I can't see who it is. But Paula, when you were in races with pacemakers, so 5.4 kilometers, 17:49. That's in the women's race. 5.4, 17:49 in that women's field with Sultan Haydar tucked in, and Galore right with her. And then a 17-second gap, look, back towards the chasing pack. Rosalita Jepkita already 17 seconds back after less than 6K. And Faith Chepkoech a few seconds back from her as well, a further 9 seconds back. I was going to say, Paula, when you had pacemakers in races, did you like to tuck right in behind them, or would you prefer to be alongside them?
I didn't have that luxury too often, to be honest. I think it was much harder back in the olden days. I didn't think we had that many people. If the women were good enough to be pacing, they actually wanted to be in the race racing. So it was harder, and a few occasions when we had male pacemakers like we have here, then I very much was conscious of the fact that I didn't want to be seen to be sheltering behind them, so I tried to run alongside as much as possible. And I think for me as well, psychologically, to imagine in my head that I was actually racing them was a bit more of a push on for me. It helped me to actually get into that more competitive nature of just actually trying to race the pacemaker, and yes, to use it as company, but not as any kind of drafting assistance or anything like that. But I think it does help, certainly in training, to sit behind someone, or even to sit behind a bike, as a lot of the elite athletes do now, and just to be able to relax on them maintaining the tempo and you just concentrating on staying with it. As I said, it just shuts off all of the wasted energy and just allows you to focus on getting as much as possible into the performance and into the turnover.
Well, they've just negotiated a huge left-hand turn there, this elite field in the men's race. There they go, top left of picture. And we've got just over 20 minutes on the clock. As I mentioned, we're at about 3,000 feet altitude, and when it becomes, in sprinting terms, anything over 1,000 meters altitude starts becoming significant. Performances get an asterisk beside them because the air is thinner, so you've got less resistance running through thinner air. But in the opposite effect, of course, is the case for distance running. The higher you go, the less assistance you're getting because the air is thinner, less oxygen with every breath. Now, this is interesting. Looks like Zuditu Galore is pushing hard. She's run 4 half marathons this year. Her personal best came in February. That was in Verona. And I guess when there's a pacemaker, Paula, in a women's race, and one athlete clings onto that pacemaker and others drop away, there's always this sort of grey area, isn't there? Because the women should be racing against each other, but the leader ends up getting assistance through the middle and sometimes the latter stages of the race, while those behind are not getting that assistance. And I always feel as though it creates a slightly uneven playing field.
Yeah, and I think that's usually the case. That perhaps is why there are actually 2 pacemakers. You can see here the man in the blue vest at the back of the field perhaps is going to stay with Sultan should she get dropped, although at the moment it is just a little bit of a chopping and changing. And I think it was perhaps more that Galau was just trying to assert her authority onto the field and just push ahead and say, okay, I'm feeling good. Well, in the men's race, everybody's happy to sit behind the pacemaker here and kind of looking across, but it's very early stages still in this race, and nobody has yet laid down their cards, if you like, and made much of a move here. They're running as a pack.
Well, to the left of that little group, you can see this men's lead group is Vincent Nyagiero. He's making his debut, a very exciting debut too. He raced well in the Prague Burel 10K back in September, back in early September. He ran 28:17. Anything down towards 28 minutes on the road is very, very useful running. And it's exciting when you're running trying a new distance, I guess, Paul. You're guaranteed a personal best. You know, you maybe have accommodated it in training, but you're taking steps into the unknown.
You are, and I think on the one hand that's very exciting, but it also perhaps takes the pressure off you a little bit. I know that's the way I used to think when I was making my debut at a distance. You're learning and you're having fun learning, but the pressure is on the experienced veterans who have that experience over this distance, and you can kind of afford to make little mistakes and just experiment and just see how it goes. And often that is a good way to go into the race with less pressure and less expectation, but just with excitement about it. And as we know, when you're excited and you're happy coming into a race, you often perform far better.
Plenty of shade in these the first half of this race. They've been on the road now for just 23 minutes. Now they break out into the sunshine. In this women's field, good job still being done by Julius Kipchumba in dragging this pairing, and it's a nice little match-up this. The local athlete, Sultan Haidar, up against youngster Galore. Haidar is 36 years old now. I say youngster, Galore is 27. She's 9 years younger. There you can see the main complex of the park that they negotiate several times. That is the main park, Anid Park, just a few kilometers away from the city centre, that they go around 2.5 times. And the main entrance to the complex actually is rather special. Just talk across pictures for a minute. They call it Lion Road. It's about 260 meters of a walkway leading up to the mausoleum of Ataturk. And there are 24 lion statues lining either side of it. They're Hittite symbols of power, used to represent the strength of the Turkish nation. They are fiercely proud of their independence, the Turks, and their 100-year history, which is celebrated towards the end of this month, the 29th of the month. Here's this lead group, by the way, in the men's race, 6 strong, leaning into this hill now, Paula. This is one of perhaps the biggest hill we've seen so far.
Yeah, and it's interesting, I think, because the hills always give you a little bit more of an indication about who is feeling good, who certainly handles the inclines better, and in fact the declines as well is a good place to look at it. Some runners are far more comfortable on a downhill section than others, and some people prefer to seek out the other side of the road, as we're seeing here. There's certainly spreading out up this wide boulevard. Might indicate there are drinks stations perhaps coming up, or it may just be that there is another turn happening to their right, and they're moving over to follow that. In fact, it looks like they're trying to slot in behind the lead vehicle a little bit and kind of concentrate on following that one. But certainly the cadence changes, doesn't it, going into the hill? And you see that bounce, it needs to be translated a little bit more up rather than just simply forward when it's on the flat.
Well, for those of you who aren't used to watching major international road races, I can tell you that the world record for the half marathon on the men's side is 57 minutes 31 seconds. not so many years ago that the 60-minute barrier was broken for the first time, but now it's very commonly broken. 57.31 by Jacob Kiplimo of Uganda. The Turkish record is by Kaan Keegan Özbilen. That's 59.48. That was in the Ras Al Khaimah half marathon in the United Arab Emirates back in February 2019. So again, the Turkish record is well under 60 minutes. And the world best this year is 58.36. If we get a sub-60 today, it'll be absolutely fabulous. It's not likely because of this altitude. We see this elite field negotiating one of the narrower sections of the course, but the surface remains really good and safe. And they're into a nice rhythm now, Paul. It looks like they've settled down into a good, steady tempo. We'll try and bring you splits as soon as we can. As I keep saying, we're not getting any information through as yet. But they're moving well, and you could almost throw a blanket over that group. You wonder sometimes whether or not they're so tightly packed that one or two of them have been sort of lulled into a full sense of, I'll run with this group, rather than running with their instincts,
yeah,
running
and
harder.
that can certainly happen. As you said, Victor Mutai is doing a great job of setting the pace, and the others are settled into it. And on the one hand, as you said, that can help just to settle in and be ready for when you are planning to make your attack and make a surge if you're thinking of bidding for that victory. But on the other hand, you can get lulled into a rhythm, and then to suddenly change the rhythm makes a difference.
Just looking at a couple of the big local names there. It's Hussein Chan, who has just gone through, the 24-year-old. And also, I think we saw Aslanhan, Ayatollah Aslanhan, go past as well. But this lead group of 6, which includes the pacemaker Victor Mutai, well ahead now. And they're enjoying a slight downhill section here. Still looking very comfortable. Mutai, perhaps the tallest in the group with the longest stride, but I wonder if that is because he's due to drop out actually fairly soon. They've been running for nearly 28 minutes. He's due to go to 11K. He might go a bit further, try and help them through the third quarter. Do you miss racing, Paula? Would you still like to be in there?
Oh, I think we all would, wouldn't we? No, I think we
No,
definitely...
for me, it's such a distant memory. It's black and white footage. I mean,
I think,
no, I'm
yeah,
not.
it's with the proviso of being in the shape that you were in when you were racing. Then
That
that,
helps.
yeah, you would absolutely. But I think we move on, and now it's a privilege to be able to sit here and watch the athletes racing and see the advances being made. I mean, I think we spoke about already many times this week about the improvement made to the women's world record recently, and is that going to happen again? Some good races coming up all over the world in the next few weeks and even today. So it's exciting to watch that and to witness it. But yeah, it's kind of nice to try and guess how the race is going to go now without the pressure of being in there, actually trying to make it play out for yourself. And another change here in the women's race when it looks like now it is Haidar who's making a move back, trying to get ahead of Galau. And I think it is a little bit of that psychological cat and mouse now. I feel better, I'm going to take the lead. No, actually we're going to run alongside each other and just really gauging how much the other has left and when you might think about trying to make your attack for the victory in this race.
I guess they're still quite a long way from halfway in this women's race. So Haidar in the red there, getting the support from the locals, of course, running on home ground as a home fixture for her. In effect, the 36-year-old former Ethiopian who's been running for Turkey for some 15 years now. And Galor, the 27-year-old who is a very experienced half-marathon racer this year. He's run a couple of 67-minute times and a couple of 69-minute times. She's had a busy year of half-marathon racing. This is her 4th half marathon of 2023. You can do that in half marathons. Of course, top marathon runners can only run twice a year over that distance. They take roughly a month recovery after a marathon, and then they'll build up for 4 or 5 months before their next race. So you do have to work on the basis of about a 6-month cycle. Did you ever do more than 2 marathons in a year, Paula?
Occasionally 3, but I do think that the ballpark has changed a little bit recently, and I think with the advent of the new technology in the shoes, they can race more often. They can certainly recover more quickly, and yes, that means a lot more half marathons that you can put into play back to back. But we have seen people successfully turn around the marathon, and I think, in fact, in here today, we have several athletes who are doubling back from having run the World Championship marathon in Budapest in very, very quick warm conditions, sorry, there, so not conducive to quick racing, but certainly sapping racing. And they are managing to turn it around and race here. It's a contrast in the women's race, isn't it? Because Haidar is not actually, I couldn't find any results for her since 2016, so this is very much getting back into racing, and she must be very, very happy with the way it's playing out so far.
Well, there's the map. They have negotiated most of the 2.5 laps of the opening section. It encompasses more or less the first half of the race, that rectangle around Anid Park. As you can see, the mausoleum there, Anid Kabir right in the center of the park. It's on the top of a slight rise, it's on the top of a hill, so you get a view for 360 degrees in all directions. Now, things happening in the men's field. And with how many minutes on the clock? They've been running for nearly 32 minutes. Gaps beginning to appear. We're on a slight downhill section now, and maybe the tempo has increased. And of course, it's not only uphills that are tough, Paula, and can break up a pack, but the downhills as well. If somebody starts really striding out, somebody who's been in that pack reasonably comfortable for a period may suddenly realise they haven't got the cadence, the leg speed to turn over fast enough to go with the surge downhill.
Exactly, and there's a technique to running well downhill as well. You kind of need to relax, lean back slightly maybe, and just kind of let gravity help you out on that downhill without putting too much impact through the muscles, particularly of your quads. And so I think maybe perhaps runners don't practice that as much. They spend a lot of time doing uphill reps and not putting as much work into being able to run quickly and relaxed downhill, and it can really be the turning point of a race.
Well, that men's lead pack has gone through 10K in 29.27. Negotiated a sharp left turn there, and then a little dog leg as they begin now to head out on the main strip, the main drag that takes through the second half of the race in a giant anti-clockwise, so almost a horseshoe shape back towards the city centre and the finish line where we're positioned, and thankfully for them very close to their hotel, only about 6 or 8 minutes walk from their hotel when they get here to the finish line at Congressium, the big conference centre here in this business district of the city. Now, this is interesting. Ataturk, where's she gone? Ataturk, rather Haidar, Sultan Haidar of, looks like there is a gap, and at 10K 32.01 in this women's race. And Galore and Haidar separated by a couple of seconds. Jepkita 49 seconds back. Kozgai with her, and then Faith Chepkoech further. Well, goodness me, some almost 30 seconds back behind that. But this is significant. Galore, for the first time, has a bit of isolation on her own and tucked in behind that pacemaker who's doing such a good job, Julius Kipchumba. I mean, it's possible that she could come back, Haidar, Paula, but usually when you've been running like that alongside somebody and a gap develops so quickly, it's an indication that you were concealing the fact you were hanging on.
Yeah, I think so, and I think particularly given the track record of Gulav that you spoke about coming into this race, she's got the form this year. She's perfectly capable of sustaining this tempo all the way through the race. Incidentally, she's been pretty close to a 10K best this year through the 10K point in the race, though. That was 32.06 in Guadalajara. And so she's running absolutely on that tempo and then trying to come back and double that in the second half of the race. So it's brave running from her, and she's definitely trying to stay with that pacemaker. Let's just hope that she's not overcooked it a little bit in the first part of the race by trying to maintain the tempo and break away and stay with the pacemaker. There's the men going into the tunnel and through a 12-kilometre mark there with just coming up to 35 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, the men going through 12K for all intents and purposes in about 35 minutes. And we'll just have a look at what that actually means. 35 minutes We'll bring them home to halfway in about 61:30, something like that. That is really solid running considering the altitude, I think, Paul, and the challenging course.
Absolutely.
If you extrapolate from that, if you take away the altitude factor, take away the hills, you're getting down towards 60 minutes.
Which is very, very good running, and I think that it's smart running as well on a day like today to not go too quickly in the first half of the race, perhaps try and aim at running negative splits. We talk a lot about negative splits in the marathon, but also in the half marathon it is often easier to close quicker, and I think certainly from a quick look at the course map and the undulations, it's perhaps a little bit less undulating, certainly a little bit more gaps, a few more gaps between the big hills and the big drags in the second part of this race. So it's not an easy second half, but perhaps able to run slightly quicker, and that would take them down below that 61-minute marker, which is very, very impressive racing.
Well, 32:01 for the women at 10K, indeed for this leader Galore, is actually intrinsically slightly quicker than for the men. 32:01, you're talking about her coming home, it's something like 67:30, there or thereabouts. Paula's got all this in her head, of course. She's didn't do maths at Loughborough, but
No, I might have just run a few half marathons in my head. And,
it's about 67:30 she's on schedule for at the moment. And actually, what's impressive is that although there are a couple of undulations towards the finish, this next quarter of the race, the third quarter of the race, is pretty quick. So you could argue that she's done the hard yards.
Yeah, I think it is. It is just, as I said, I think for me it's more impressive given that her 10K race was 32:06 in Guadalajara. So to be able to go through quicker than that definitely puts her on target to challenge her personal best, which is great racing from her, as we talked about, at this semi-altitude and on a course with as many hills in as this. She's obviously somebody who enjoys running on the hillier courses, and there certainly are horses for courses, if you like. People prefer different types of courses, and she seems very, very comfortable with the undulating nature of this.
We just saw Ahmet Alkanoglu, I think the Turkish 24-year-old, in his fourth half marathon of the year, go through 12K in 37:15. The leaders, remember, were 35:02, so he's a couple of minutes down on them. But he's run a couple of, in fact, all three of his half marathons so far this year have been 66 minutes. He might be on schedule for something a minute or two quicker than that. His personal best is 63:57, so he's not far outside his personal best tempo at the moment. Here's another of the local athletes passing 12K.
Is that Chan?
That's Azat Demirtas, the Turkish 21-year-old, making his debut. So whatever happens to him, he's going to get a personal best. He passes 12K, in about 38:05. So these athletes can put together a strong second half, and the second half is slightly quicker. No, we are going to see some good times.
He's also going to find himself being challenged perhaps by the women's leader fairly soon, because there wasn't much of a gap back to her here, and you can see she's still running very, very strongly, and now starting to move up alongside the pacemaker at times, as if to say, okay, come on, I'm okay here, you can lift it up a little bit.
Well, she was always the favourite, Zeditu Galore, an athlete with no track form, but she's done 6 half marathons in total in her career, and every one of them has been under 70 minutes. You get that these days, don't you, Paul? You get the young East Africans, Rift Valley athletes, whether Kenya, Ethiopian, Tanzania, Uganda, they come out and right from the gun in their first races of a career at 18, 19, they run world-class times. Yeah,
and they have to, I think, to be able to justify another trip outside the country to race. You've got to put down a good performance in your first one, so I think they spend a lot of time making sure that they can really lay down a good, credible performance, which will get them back into future races.
Well, the lead men, there's things happening. You can see there the marker in the centre of the screen. They've negotiated the 2.5 laps of the rectangle around the Ataturk Mausoleum, and they're heading out on the long anti-clockwise horseshoe-shaped drag that takes them out towards the finish line here near the city centre. And there is a breakaway, and I think that is Cisse Lema, who is pushing hard. Now the pacemaker's job is done. They've gone through about 13K. They've got 40 minutes on the clock, so only about 20 minutes to go, maybe 21 minutes of hard running to come. And as the flattest section of the race now is being negotiated, and with some significant downhill as well. So they've really turned it on. He keeps glancing at his clock, at his watch there, to see what sort of damage he's doing and how he's going per kilometre, I think, Paul, and taking his own splits.
Yeah, or maybe some indication perhaps of heart rate as well. I'm not sure. It's always a little bit confusing when you see an athlete looking at their watch a lot when they're not actually around a kilometre marker, although he did just pass through 14 kilometres shortly after that. And sometimes it's also just perhaps a little idiosyncrasy that happens if you're trying to run to splits in training a lot of the time. Then you get used to checking your watch very regularly. But certainly that surge has had an effect. It's hard to tell in that camera shot how close the chasing athlete is, whether it's a single athlete or a couple of athletes still working together. There were 4 or so in that group, and certainly now these 2 are away. I think it is number 3 Chimdeso who's with him, is it?
I thought it was Bethwell Yegon, but we shall see. But didn't get a good shot from that side-on view. It's so hard to identify them. But here you can see that aerial view of some of the different sections of the glorious city centre and the new business district of the city that we're in now. It's quite magnificent. It's a city, of course, where the government and administration is centred, despite Istanbul being the main tourist attraction of this nation. Ankara is rapidly becoming and attracting more focus from tourists and business visitors alike. Indeed, the flights from Istanbul to Ankara that we all took a couple of days ago were jam-packed. There are many, many flights per day making that route. So, 2 athletes in the men's race battling it out. The pacemakers have gone. 2 athletes in the women's race, but one of them is the pacemaker, and it is Julius Kipchumba dragging galore, the little Ethiopian. She's dwarfed by the tall figure of Julius Kipchumba, dragging her further and further clear. Got quite a small pitter-patter stride, hasn't she? She's got a lovely economical technique, arms carried quite high across her chest.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of the Ethiopian women do run with that very, very relaxed style. She looks for me a little bit like Gitawami used to run in terms of her upper body there, who's not a bad athlete to copy in terms of style. And I think also the contrast between her and the much taller athlete of Kipchumba is helping to make it look a smaller stride for her. She is a lot smaller.
Did you work on your technique, Paul, or did you think? Are you one of these people who thinks that your technique should sort itself out and you should run with instinct and effects?
I did work a lot more on just maintaining my form, maintaining my cadence and turnover, and trying to lose techniques which wasted energy and not worry about too much that might take too much energy to correct. So my head nodding, if you like, I didn't waste too much time on that, because who knows, I might have run slower if I didn't nod my head.
Anyway, Paula, your head nodding is what one or two people do talk about, but I always say to people, look, from the neck downwards, Paula Radcliffe actually moved pretty amazingly well. You don't break world records if you're not a good runner, but the head nodding, you weren't even aware of it yourself.
No, I mean, some people actually gave me some input that perhaps it was linked into my left foot, which I'd had a lot of injury problems with. And it was
Your left foot?
Yeah, I threw my head back as I was pushing off with my left foot, so it was almost like a pain distraction, but subconscious, that I didn't know about. And yeah, when I used to roll my shoulders
a piece of string joining your left foot to your neck, so that it was sort of...
No, I think it's a pain, like babies roll their eyes backwards to escape pain. And if you roll your eyes backwards when you're running, your kind of head has to follow to be able to get them back to look so you can see where you're going.
Well, we've got 3 together in this men's race now. They have been joined by the blue figure. And just checking, I think that's Niageo in the blue. Vincent Nyamongo Niageo of Kenya, the 24-year-old, making his debut today. And if that is the case, he's having one heck of a debut. Much smaller than the other 2. But certainly Cisse is moving well at the front end. And of course there are other races here today too. Don't forget that the mass half marathon starts at 8:45, so that's just about to get underway. And look at the numbers there behind the start line. Of course, the elite athletes got underway 45 minutes ago, and they get going too. Some good local standard, local runners of a sort of club standard to the fore there. For many of these hundreds, it's all about taking part rather than really racing.
And there's something special, isn't there, I think, about all of the athletes coming together here to celebrate this inaugural run, celebrate 100 years of history here in Ankara, and it's something that people have come from all over the world to be a part of, and only these can ever say that they took part in the inaugural Run Ankara half marathon here, and that's something special. I think the city have worked very, very hard to pull this together and to put this event on, and it's testament to that hard work that we see such beautiful pictures here showing off the city today in this beautiful sunlight, with some great racing performances at the front, but also some great stories and a lot of people joining that huge family of runners that stretches all over the world and brings people from all corners of that world together.
I was there. These people will be able to say in years to come, in the first Runkara day of racing, festival of racing. So the Mass-Half Marathon, hundreds doing that, and the 10K start as well, going off together there at 8:45 local time. Back to this lead women's race, though, and we are coming to the business end of these elite races, and it's still the tiny figure of 27-year-old Zuditu Adoro of Ethiopia who leads. She's away now. She has a significant lead over Sultan Haydar, back in second place as the sun continues to go higher in the sky. The shadows are shortening, and it is warming up. We're in our commentary booth by the finish line. We've taken off our jackets, and it's due to be 23, 24 degrees later on this morning and through the middle of the day. Rather glorious weather. 15K is where they're at in the women's race, give or take a little bit. While we have a runaway winner in the women's race, and it is frankly galore against the clock. In the men's race, fabulous battle unfolding here, and it is still Cisse who's doing the aggressive running. The others trying to live with him, but Cisse Lemma, in only his fourth ever half marathon run. Remember, he's the London Marathon winner from 2 years ago in 2:04. He was third in Berlin the previous year in his personal best of 2:03. He's been fifth in Dubai and third in Tokyo. Massively experienced racer. And it's interesting, Paula, isn't it, that he's pushing hard early on, or I say early on, it's not like he's leaving it to the last kilometre or two, because he's trying to use his strength, make that the decisive factor.
I think when you look at his marathon pedigree, he is head and shoulders above others in the field over that marathon distance. I mean, 4 times under 2:05. When he is in shape on a start line, he is absolutely up there, challenging for victories in World Marathon major races. So a very high quality marathon runner. And then you have to play to your strengths, and that is laying down his strength, particularly on the inclines, as we talked about, just turning the screw a little bit more, asking those questions of the other athletes and just trying to eke out a little bit more of a margin of being comfortable ahead of them, trying to fatigue them a little bit more and draw out the faster finish from people that he may fear coming into the closing kilometres or so.
Well, Cisse Lemma pushing hard, trying to break the stubborn intentions of Bethwell Yegon, but for Galore here, it's all about her against the clock. Look at the lead at 15K, 47.49, and she has a lead there of 23 seconds. That's very decisive over Haydar. In fact, I wonder whether Haydar needs to be looking over her shoulder now. Galore at 47.49.
So
15K,
so I'm just working out, that's about a 15.50 or so, just under, for that 5K section. So you're absolutely right, she did manage to pick it up a little bit. I mean, the kilometre splits that we were getting were on the uphill section, so that's why they looked slightly slower with those 320s that were popping up on your screen. But that is very good running, and she's absolutely managing to lift the pace a little bit, so perhaps edging into that personal best territory, maybe even challenging the 67-minute mark. Still more running to come yet, though.
67.10 tempo with 6K to go for Galore. There are those 2 climbs towards the end, which maybe will slow her down a little bit, but yeah, 47.49 for Galore at 15k equals about 67.10, 67.15, something like that. And in the men's race, well, the racing is supreme at the front end. Another long curve with a slight incline here. And it is again Cisse Lemma who is attacking and pushing hard. He's constantly, it's like heavyweights. He's thumping away at the man with him, Bethwell Yegon, trying to break him. And surely one of these times he's going to. You hear about the thoughts of great athletes in years gone by, Paula, where they say, I surged and he hung with me, and I surged and he hung with me. And he thinks one more surge and I'll break him. And sometimes you hear from the guy that was in second place saying, if he had put in one more surge, he'd have broken me, but he didn't.
Yeah.
So it is a mind game, really.
Definitely, and it is also a question of how much energy and ability you have to be able to put in one more surge. It's easy to say if they'd done that, they would have beaten me. If you're not capable of doing it, you can't do it either. But certainly that's not, the piece of elastic isn't yet broken in that gap, is it? But it's being stretched.
It is being stretched indeed. So, what, 51 minutes on the clock. We've got about 10 minutes of racing to go, and he's done all the aggressive running, has Cisse Lemma, and now maybe at last he's got his reward. He is very powerfully built in the legs, and ideally built really for these uphills and downhills. I well remember watching Kenenisa Bekele against Mo Farah in the Great North Run about 6 or 7 years ago, and there's a steep downhill in that half marathon up in the northeast of England for about 100 meters, and it's very steep. And I remember watching Bekele come down it, bouncing down it, looking really comfortable because he's so powerful in the legs. And Mo, who was one of the greatest distance runners in history, struggling with the downhill because he's much more slight and doesn't have that muscle mass to cope with the downhills in the same way. And it's where Bekele broke away from him.
Yeah, and it's absolutely, I think, crucial that you're able to absorb the impact down the hill and keep that maintained into forward movement. And it sounds very simple, but it is a technique that I think athletes do need to practice. You can be naturally better at as well. And I think having those stronger quad muscles absolutely helps up the hills as well as down the hills.
Well, Lemma now with, 52.5 minutes on the clock, I think has got that isolation that he needs. You can see that bottom screen where he is. He's about to take that penultimate sharp left-hand turn at about 17.5k. So, yeah, he's got about 8 or 9 minutes of running to come, about 3k to go. Effectively, on the last lap, it was a mile race. He'd be on the last lap, pushing hard down the back straight, and he's got to think now about maintaining this pressure. Don't give, what they always say, coaches, is don't give the athlete behind you any glimmer of hope. If you get a slight gap, then try and increase that gap, make it a significant gap so that psychologically there is a break between the pair of you and they've got nothing to hang on to. They've got a target. Always easier, Paula, isn't it, in races? I mean, I don't know whether you ever run any relays for your club back in the day, but if you're on the shoulder of somebody, it's much easier psychologically than to be leading and having somebody just tucked behind you.
Definitely, and having been that person with the leading and athletes tucked behind a lot, yeah, I can say that there is that kind of added pressure, particularly as you get closer and closer to the finish and you realise that you're starting to run out of road to be able to run away from the athletes. So to be able to be away and clear and to be able to no longer hear the foot strikes of the athlete behind, I think is something crucial for Cisse Lemma here, and he's doing absolutely the right thing. Not one sign of weakness to the athletes chasing behind. Not once as he looked over his shoulder, eyes focused on the road up ahead of him, and he's just absolutely working on maintaining that form, maintaining that turnover, and keeping the rhythm going.
Well, he gets a moment of shade, but most of the time now out in the sunlight. Checks his own clock there to see what he's got, and he'll see 54.5 minutes. And he will know full well he's got about 6 or 7 minutes of hard running to come. You can see there he's that dot in the middle of the screen is him with the second place and not far behind him. He's negotiating that final turn at about 17.5, nearly 18 kilometers. And then effectively on the long run home. There is another slight turn, a little dog leg at about 20k that he will have to negotiate. But he's looking really strong.
Yeah,
be delighted with this.
I was just about to say, Tim, he looks as though he's almost running a little bit more freely now as well. That pressure of trying to break away is gone. You can see his shadow stretching out down the road behind him, and not another sign of chasing athletes being able to close that gap, and so he can focus on the road ahead and perhaps use the bikes and the lead car in some way in order to be able to give himself something to focus on up the road. A lot of the athletes as well will use the lines on the road as a way to keep their rhythm and to keep their concentration at this stage in the race. But he really looks as though he's now able to pour every last bit of energy into the closing couple of kilometres.
Well, he's about to go past the 18-kilometre point. He's trusting the lead vehicle and the motorbikes to guide him along the shortest line. He cuts left across to avoid going down that tunnel on the main drag of that motorway, and now heads back towards the business district of the city. And we'll have one left-hand turn to take before coming into the finish line. I don't think there's any danger now of him being caught. It would be nice to see the gap back to second place, but he's looking really strong. He checks his watch again. This has been a marvellous performance, and he's dominated. He's the one who has led since the pacemakers dropped out at around 11k, as was planned. He has been the man who's done nearly all the hard work, constantly pushing the pace, and he's got his due reward to ease away from his pursuers.
Now we get a chance to see, can we see the chasing athlete make that turn, and he certainly has a substantial lead at this point, which will be welcome news to him.
Well, indeed. I don't know if he's done his homework on the course. I know there was a course tour yesterday for the athletes, and on Saturday the traffic wasn't too bad. I mean, as ever in a city of this size, 6.5 million souls, the traffic was bad through Thursday and Friday. Today, there's hardly any traffic, even on the roads open around the course. And yesterday it was much quieter too. So they had that course tour yesterday. He will have got his head around most of this, I'm sure. If you're going to go on a course tour, you might as well take it in and plan and discuss with colleagues. 57.5 minutes nearly on the clock now, and Cissé Lema has engineered this victory. He's carved it out quite supremely. It's been brilliant. You wonder, Paula, what he might have done had he focused more upon half marathons in years gone by. His best, his lifetime best, Cissé Lema, 61.22, may be under threat.
Yeah, it might be, and that would be some running, I think, on a course, as we've talked about today, it's not really that conducive. There is the first look back, so I don't think that's a concerned look back. I think it is gauging how much he has and just making sure that he is okay as he's approaching this last real climb, isn't it? And then he's able to, he's perhaps run over this closing kilometre. I think given how close we are to the athletes' hotel, many of the elite athletes would have come out and at least made sure that they've run over the closing kilometre or so into the finish, and make sure that they know that should they be coming into it with a close battle, which he's not, so he's judging it and he's able to run. And there, is that the chasing athletes? Or is that further back down the veld? That is Labam Kipkemoy. I'm not sure why we saw that in the shot, unless he has worked himself up into second.
Well, it would be nice to know a little bit more about what's going on behind, but more importantly, we know what is happening up front, and that's Cissé Lema Kasaye, to give him his full name at the age of 32. Well, he's built on the strength since he broke into world-class racing back in 2015. He was a relatively late developer, but his consistency has been quite superb. Was 7th in the London Marathon last year in 2:07, and then 2nd in Prague back in May this year in 2:06. That's his only race so far this year, so this is only his 2nd race of 2023, and he's getting it very right indeed. He has destroyed this field with this aggressive front running through the second half. Looking like he's working hard now. 59.23 on the clock. And he isn't far from the finish at all now. He's got to be very close to coming into the final kilometre. Still looking strong. He hasn't shown any sign of fatigue, Paul, and no change in that tempo. He was leaning into a slight incline a couple of minutes ago. That was a little glance over his shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the only telling sign that he is fatigued, as you'd expect to be at this point in a hard half marathon. And so those little glances over his shoulder are perhaps a sign that he knows he's not got a lot left in the tank, and he's just making sure that what he has, he uses in the right way over this final part of the race, this final kilometre. It must be inside the final kilometre now, I'm sure. And that he doesn't kind of exert himself in the beginning part of that, chasing a fast time if he is going to come under danger behind. If he knows that he's clear, then he can use that energy to push hard towards a possible personal best, and otherwise he can just enjoy the victory. But now I think it's a pretty much downhill into the finish area, apart from the final little climb.
He negotiates the final incline and then crests the brow of the hill, and he will come in towards the finish here where we are positioned. 60 minutes on the clock, and here he comes now towards the finish. It has been a quite majestic performance from the leader here today, Sisaleme Kasaye. He will be the winner of the inaugural Runkara International Marathon, half marathon here of 2023. Crosses the line now, 61:06 unofficially. That's on my clock. We'll see what comes through eventually. But that is a fabulous run from him. When you take into account the undulating course, the altitude, it's a warm morning too, and here is second place. And Chimdesa, it is taking second place. Chimdesa in about 61:25, there or thereabouts. Brilliant closing speed from Chimdesa to take second place. Wow. Chimdesa Dibele Gudeta, so 1-2 for Ethiopia. And third place there for Vincent Nyamongo Nageo. And that is a debut for him, around 61:45, Paula.
Yeah, I think around about that. There it goes. 34 seconds behind the victory, so yeah, you were pretty much exact there.
Plus 17, so 61:09. And 17 seconds back, Chimdesa. And then Vincent Nageo, further 17 seconds back in third place. That is great running. He's got all three way under 62 minutes in these conditions. I mean, good conditions, Paula, but bearing in mind, that is something that the race can build on. We'll get some 61 next year and so on.
Absolutely, and there we have as well, that is Laban Kikemboy, and he has come across the finish line in around about 62:30, which is a big personal best for him. His personal best goes back to Istanbul half, where he was 15th, and that was 63:46, so he's taken a substantial chunk off his personal best.
Okay, you are for the first time here in Ankara, and you can promise that you come back next year again?
Yes, will back here for the next year. Runkara half marathon. Today is starting today, no? So I'm happy. Will back. Okay.
You say that you will win again! Oh my god! Oh my god! Seneye yine geleceğim ve yine kazanacağım diyor. Yani birçok sporcunun korkulu rüyası mı olacak acaba? Sisay, thank you so much. We are so happy to know you, to meet you. Congratulations one more time. Bravo! Evet, böylelikle ilk üçümüz belli oldu.
Just allowing you to listen in there to the post-race interviews, and that was Sisalema promising to come back and to run in the future at this Runkara half marathon, which is the inaugural version today, and I'm sure will continue to grow. And great performances, of course, a course record and an event record on the inaugural version, but a very impressive one at that, and perhaps one also coming in the women's race here.
Absolutely, yes. Zedute Galur here has broken away through this final third of the race. She had stubborn resistance for certainly through halfway and slightly beyond from Sultan Haydar. But the pacemaker here, Julius Kipchumba, has eased her clear. She checks her watch here. She leans into this final climb, and when she breasts that, and she just has only a few hundred meters to go, it's been a truly dominant run from her. In a way, similar to the men's race, Paula, because Cisse Lemma was on his own for the final third.
Yeah, there she goes past the 20-kilometre mark, so she's got, what, about 3 minutes of racing, so she slipped slightly from the very, very quick pace that she had. I guess that's inevitable when you are so close to your personal best and you've put a lot in on a tough course like this and you're going up a steep, steep incline here, and she needs to now try and focus on the back of that pacemaker in front of her. Just look slightly up the road, not too far, not to the top of the hill, because that always is a little bit of a daunting view ahead of you. I think to focus a few meters ahead on the road up the hill certainly helps to maintain the cadence, stay relaxed, and just keep working on each step at a time, and the little bit that you can put control and the little bit that you can focus on before you can really stretch out down this nice sweeping downhill into the finish here.
Well, as it says, developing half-marathon runner with top 3 finishes last year and this year in Madrid, Cardiff and Yangzhou. Half-marathon, she is a half-marathon specialist. She's already run, as I said, by my reckoning from checking reference sites last night, 4 half-marathons this year with her personal best. Back in February, 67.35. She's got a minute and a half in which to break that if she can get under 67.35 here today. That was in Verona, Italy, where she finished in 2nd place back in February. That would be a quite supreme performance here, but it matters not really whether she runs a personal best here today so much as she wins the race, gets that €5,000 prize money, and establishes a solid standard for this race to be built upon in years to come. The pacemaker, Julius Kipchumba, still doing a fabulous job, making sure he's got his liquids.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit more comfortable at this stage, and he's able to focus on that. It's not something that she's going to worry about. She's not going to try and take on fluids. At this point, she knows she's got the race run, and she's just now focusing on running as quickly as possible over the closing stages. It will be a welcome sight when I think she knows that the hills are done and she can just relax into the downhill to the finish.
Well, this is a mixed women's race, of course, women against men as well, so the women getting help from the men. And the world record in a mixed race is an almost science-fictional 62.52 by Letesenbet Gide of Ethiopia. That was in Valencia a couple of years ago now, back on the 24th of October 2021. Gide ran 62.52, which is a really quick time on the men's side, never mind about on the women's side. But anything under 70 minutes is still world-class running. 67.5 minutes on the clock now for Galore here. And she has got the perfect situation here, great conditions, a pacemaker just for her, help enabling her to pull clear of the rest of the field.
And I'm just looking from our commentary box to the final turn, which is what, about 100, 120 meters or so. And she's absolutely now coming down that hill to make that final turn. And she will then see the finish line waiting ahead of her and be able to pour everything into that final 100 meters. Here she comes.
Takes the final turn, does Galore of Ethiopia, the 27-year-old, a half-marathon specialist. The pacemaker, Julius Kipchumba, who's accompanied her stride for stride the whole way, pulls to one side as she comes onto the red carpeting, and she will be the inaugural winner of the Runkara International Half Marathon of 2023. A winning time there unofficially, 68.25. That is brilliant, absolutely brilliant running. Again, if you extrapolate from that, take away the hills and the lumps and bumps of this course, and you take away the altitude, which is a disadvantage, and she will have run a very, very quick time here as well. Other athletes on the men's side coming through, Patrick Weber of the Czech Republic coming through at 68.51. Weber, as the 24-year-old, is a best of 65.42. He's about 3 or 4 minutes outside that today.
And he was just chased home by Azat Demirtas of Turkey as well, who on his debut put in a great performance. And then Haidar just crossing the line there. Good return to form, a very, very strong return to form from her. As I said, I didn't find any results since 2016, but there she has run maybe even a personal best. 69.09,
something like that,
from
Sultan Haidar. And it will be by nearly a minute in a personal best. She's never broken 70 minutes before. In fact, she ran 70.02. She did have a time of 69.49 in Adana from 2015, but that was short. that course. So that is a huge personal best. And actually a previous personal best, 7:02, was in Ras Al Khaimah half marathon back in 2011, the RAC half marathon. So Haidar has run out of her skin there. It shows how much help it is to have a pacemaker for most of the race, doesn't it?
And perhaps also racing on home soil as well. I think that was a big, big step up
And
for
here
her.
comes the third place up. Great running and really aggressive running there to just stay ahead for third place from Vivian Kozgai. And coming home just ahead of one of her compatriots. Kozgai's time about 70:10, something like that. And it is her debut, just outside 70 minutes, but that's a heck of a debut from her. Jepkita it was, Rosalie Jepkita, who came home for fourth place. Her time 1:45 behind that winning time of Galore, 68:28 officially, Galore's time. Victoria Blythe, the race organiser, to write a picture welcoming these top elite athletes home. It has gone tremendously well, Paula. So much to be pleased about here, because in a major capital city in 2023, the challenges of closing roads and establishing a race like this, getting it off the ground, getting the race to go through smoothly, with all the challenges that local authorities and cities always put up initially, is quite fantastic.
It is, and there is a lot of hard work been put in behind the scenes, as we see Bojana Bjelic of Croatia coming in towards the finish, but the team here have worked extremely hard. I'm sure there's not been a lot of sleep been had by that team over the last week or even months coming into this race, but have to be rewarded by the great racing here and the great racing still to come by the masses out on the roads today.
Well, Bielchach, her personal best 70:43. She's going to be a little bit more than a minute outside that. There she is. She looks almost like she's limping a little bit, maybe carrying a slight injury as she crests the brow of that hill and then will drop down and take the final right-hand turn towards the finish line here. Here is Faith Chepkoech. She's had a tough day at the races. Her best 70:34. She's going to be a couple of minutes outside that. Chepkoech, the 30-year-old. She's more of a 10K racer this year. She's had 3 10Ks. They've been 32, 31 and 32 minutes. She's a really consistent 10K racer, but maybe the half marathon stretching her a little bit at this stage. She was 7th in the Durban Marathon back in March in 2:42, but she clearly is not a natural marathon racer either. Here she comes then. By our reckoning, this is going to have her in 5th place. I think Bielchach of Croatia is going to be 6th. The winning time there for Faith Chepkoech, 72:40, give or thereabouts.
She comes in 5th, and then we'll see Bjelic come in for 6th. She didn't actually compete in Budapest in the marathon, Bjelic. She is one of those returning from there. She finished 33rd, so perhaps not yet fully recovered from that race as well, which was very tough.
Yeah, Bielchach of Croatia, a prolific racer. She's had loads of races this year. I was looking at her card yesterday, and she's run 1500s, 3000s, 5000s on the track. I mean, just so many races, and many times in the half marathon she's running the 71 to 74 minute range, and looks like she's going to do that again here this morning.
Yeah, she does have a 2:23:39 marathon personal best from Valencia. Obviously a much faster course than that of today. But she does have that marathon pedigree as well. But as you said, 19 Croatian titles. That's a lot of racing. Just look at these pictures here. This is the greatest part, I think, to see the kids and the families out there taking part in this inaugural race and just enjoying the spirit of running, the spirit of sport, bringing people together and celebrating the history of a capital city such as Ankara. It's really great to see. These are pictures from the Expo, I think.
Yeah, pictures from the Expo, the Sport and Technology Expo. Of course, it was busy through yesterday in particular, and you and I were there, Paula, on stage. And the 900-metre run for the family run, which took place yesterday, was well attended. Everybody had masses of fun. They created a real carnival atmosphere for the families, the youngsters to remember. And, they will no doubt come back in their droves next year. And what you want is to send people away happy from their race day experience and to come back next year and tell their friends about it and bring back more and more numbers. And there's no doubt at all, Paula, that the 4,000 or so souls that have raced through yesterday and today will be back, and I suspect numbers will double next year. You know, this has been a well-organised event. It's gone very, very smoothly. And wherever you've travelled, there's been smiles in Ankara this last couple of days.
Yeah, and I think that tells a story as well. I think particularly for the elite athletes, it's great to get the opportunity to go and visit somewhere new and to be welcomed and to be made to feel welcome, as well as being able to race quickly and have a really well-organised race. And all of those things have come together. So I think it's a great, great start. Congratulations to everybody who's worked so hard on that here in Ankara. And really looking forward to seeing this race grow. And more people are going to come. The atmosphere at the start was very, very nice as well. The people the masses getting ready to go out on this course and being warmed up, and very excited to be here.
Well, we're seeing the best of the racing from this morning in the men's race, won by Sise Lema of Ethiopia in 61.09. Fabulous running for a half marathon, slightly at altitude, about 3,000 feet altitude, 860 meters altitude. The women's race won by the tiny figure of Galor, Zaditu Adaro Galor, in 68.28, with Haydar of Turkey making sure there was home representation on the rostrum. Her second place time unofficially 69.09, and Kozgai taking third place. Her time 70.10. So the first two a long way under 70 minutes here today at the first international half marathon of Ankara, called a Runkara. Lovely play on words. And there it is, confirmation of the win for Sise Lema ahead of Jim Dessa and Vincent Niageo. Laban Kipkembo in fourth place, 62.29. The first five in that men's race getting under 63 minutes. Indeed, the first six getting under 63 minutes. And Chan, the best of the home athletes, 64.53 in seventh place, with Aslanhan, his compatriot, just some 7 seconds behind in eighth place, 65 minutes exactly. And Ahmed Al-Kanoglu and Omar Al-Kanoglu back in 9th and 10th places. Good little domestic dust up there between 7th and 10th in the men's competition. And that's what you need, isn't it? You need great competition on a regular basis, but actually, for athletes to be dragged up to world class, these Turkish athletes need good competition against international opposition.
To be able to race against the best, learn from the best, and to measure yourself against them. So this time maybe it's a minute or so back from that leading group, and then next time it might be a little bit less, and to keep working on that and chipping away at it is exactly what domestic competition needs.
Well, the winning time, quicker than I expected, Paula, I must admit, because we knew that this course was challenging in terms of its undulations. We knew that we're at about 3,000 feet altitude, and conditions perfect this morning. It's actually warming up now. I would say it's almost becoming too warm for perfect conditions. You know, you go to races like the Berlin Marathon most years, it's about 8 to 10 degrees centigrade at the start. You know, it almost needs to be a little bit chilly.
Yeah, and I think the athletes today in the elite side had perfect conditions, but you're absolutely right. For the mass races, I think it will be a case of making sure they take on fluids and they take on that hydration. They were getting some great advice yesterday at the expo and out along the course. We saw all of those fluids being provided. So I think really good conditions, great conditions for spectating as well, to be able to get around and see this beautiful city.
Well, Paula, we're coming to the end of our coverage very shortly. The presentations are still 25 minutes away, but your final summarised thoughts on today, the first race in a major capital city, and it was long overdue, because there's not been an international race in this capital ever, and yet almost every other capital city in the civilised world, the Western world, let's say, has had major marathons, major half marathons, big road races of an international status for many, many years. But here in Ankara, they've got it very right at last, and it is so welcome, and it will grow and grow.
It will, and it's been a privilege to be here and to witness it. You can see the 100 worked into that logo there, and it's a great way to celebrate those 100 years of history here in Ankara with such a great first race here, which will, as you said, I'm sure continue to grow and grow. We've seen some excellent performances. We will see some excellent stories pan out in that mass race as well. And many of the people taking part in that mass race will have taken the opportunity to visit Ankara, to visit all of the iconic sites around, and to leave with some very special memories. And as you said, hopefully continue to come back and bring friends back in the future.
The future is now. It is coming at us, and it will come at us year after year here in Ankara, I'm sure, with this Runkara International Half Marathon, first ever edition, having unfolded with a wonderful success this morning. Ethiopian double wins. Zeduto Galore in the women's race, 68.28. She was the winner by a good margin today, over half a minute. And Cisse Lemmer on the men's side was champion, 61.09 his winning time. It has happened in Runkara, in Ankara this morning, on 100th anniversary of the founding of this glorious nation, this proud nation. Well, the organisers can be rightfully proud now. They have done it. It is established, and it will be back in 12 months' time. From Paula Radcliffe, myself, Tim Hutchings, and I'll say goodbye to you, and thanks for being with us. We'll see you again in a year's time. Bye-bye.
Mikrofon birine de bak şıkladım. Evet, görüyorum.
Zedid'in Keter birinci olmadı mı? Hayır, Zedid.
Well, if you are still with us, the award ceremony for the elite men and women about to get underway. This is in the Congressium Conference Center, just about 100 yards from the finish line at this inaugural Runkara International
Ladies
Half
and
Marathon
gentlemen, the
in
award
Ankara.
ceremony of the half marathon in men's category is
Local
ready.
announcer take over.
Evet, ödül törenimizin erkek şampiyonları için ödül törenimize hazırız bayanlar baylar. And ladies and gentlemen, finishing in third place is Ladies and gentlemen, finishing in the third place is Vincent Nyageo from Kenya. And finishing in second place is from Ethiopia, Chimdesa Debele. And ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the half marathon in men's category is from Ethiopia, Sisai Lema. And now, to give the prizes and the medals, I would like to invite the president of Turkish Athletic Federation, Mr. Fatih Çintimar, and the founder of Runkara, Mrs. Victoria Blight. And come together for the photo, please. And now, so we lead you in singing the national anthem of Ethiopia. Congratulations one more time, and we send you back with strong applause. Alkışlarla uğurluyoruz şampiyonlarımızı. Bravo. Who's number third?
Evet. Şimdi birazdan devam edeceğiz. Kadın atletlerimizi, kadın şampiyonlarımızı sahneye alacağız. We will continue with women champions, the third, second and the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with the prizes. And ladies and gentlemen, the award ceremony of the half marathon in women's category is ready. Ladies and gentlemen, the women's category and the finishing in the third place is from Kenya, Vivian Koski. And the finishing in the second place is from Turkey, Sultan Haydar. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the half marathon in women's category is from Ethiopia, 72 Adero Gelo. And to give the medals and the trophies and the flowers, again, the president of Turkish Athletic Federation, Mr. Fatih Çintimar, and the founder of Runkara, Mrs. Victoria Blight. And please come together for the photo. A photo of memory. And ladies and gentlemen, so we lead you in singing the national anthem of Ethiopia. Okay, we send you back with strong applause. Güçlü alkışlarımız şampiyonlarımız için. Congratulations one more time. And see you next year again. Bye bye. Thank you. Evet, herkesi bir kere sevgiyle, saygıyla bir kez daha selamlarken Sayın Mustafa Çelik, Ankara Gençlik Spor İl Müdürümüz de hem sabah startta bizlerle birlikteydi, hem burada ödül töreninde. Hoş geldiniz diyoruz size de. Teşekkür ederiz.
Just this Runkara half marathon is the first starting half marathon, so I am happy to win. Just it is very challenging a course of Runkara half marathon, but it is good. I win just 16 minutes 50 seconds. I will finish, so it is good.
You are the winner of the 2021 London Olympics also. Congratulations again.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
ladies and gentlemen, the award ceremony of the half marathon in Turkish men's and women's category is ready. And now, ladies and gentlemen, finishing in third place is Derya Kunur and Ahmet Alkanoğlu. Finishing in second place is Bahar Atalay and Ayatullah Aslanhan. And ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the half marathon is Sultan Haydar and Hüseyin Can. And to give the prizes, ladies and gentlemen, Youth and Sport Provincial Director of Ankara, Mr. Mustafa Çelik, and founder of Runkara, Mrs. Victoria Blight. Cumhuriyetimizin 100. yılını kutlarken, 100. yılının gururunu yaşarken, atamızın dibinde, atamızın yanında, onun emanetiyle, onun sesiyle startımızı verdik saat 8'de. Ve işte bu gururu 100. yılda bizlere yaşattıkları için bu 6 sporcularımızı bir kez daha tebrik ediyoruz. Bu gururu bizlere yaşattıkları için. Evet, hatıra fotoğrafı için bir araya geliyoruz. Come together for the photo. And ladies and gentlemen, so we'll lead you in singing the national anthem of Turkey. Güçlü alkışlarımız şampiyonlarımıza. Bu gurur bizlere yaşattığınız için teşekkürler. Thank you. Congratulations one more time. It was all, ladies and gentlemen. And the race is still going on. We are going to the finish point now all together. Yarışımız bir yandan devam etmekte. 21K sporcularımızı finish noktasında karşılamaya devam edeceğiz. Yaş kategori şampiyonları ödül töreni saat 12'de olacağız. We will be back here at 12. The age categories champions will get their medals on the stage at 12, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Çok teşekkür ediyoruz bir kez daha.
ikili al istersen. Tercümanımız da var alabiliyorsan. Tercümanımız da var, ikili al istersen. Tamam, tekli değil ama sesi yok. Hazırız
ከእናንተ ጋር ናቸው ሲሉ አዎ አሉ። tamam አንቺ በአማርኛ እኔ እነግርሻለሁ በአማርኛ ከዛ መልሽልኝ በአማርኛ እኔ እነግራችኋለሁ።
Tercümanla beraber alacağım. Tamam.
ተጋበይ
Congratulations, you are the first winner of the first Runkara half marathon. What would you like to say about the race and how was the stage?
እንኳን ደስ አለሽ በመጀመሪያ ደረጃ የራንካራ የመጀመሪያ ውድድር አሸናፊ በመሆንሽ እና ምንድነው ውድድሩ እንዴት ነበረ? እንዴት ነው?
ያው እኔም አንደኛ በመሆኔ በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል። ያው የምችለውን አድርጌ ሩጫለሁ። በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል አንደኛ ስለሆንኩ። ያው አንካራ የመጀመሪያ ነው የሮጥኩት። በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል አንደኛ በመውጣቴ።
Yeah, I'm so glad to win and I'm so happy for win. This is my first in Ankara and this is my first marathon in Ankara and also for Ankara also it's the first marathon and I'm so happy for winning this.
Do you like Ankara and you will be here? Will be here next year?
አንካራን ወደሻት? ለቀጣዩም እዚሁ ነው እንደምትሆኚው? ቀጣይ አመት እዚሁ ነው የምትኖሪው ወይ ከዚህ በኋላ?
ያው አንካራ በጣም ደስ ትላለች። በጣም እኔ እንጃ በቃ እንደዚህ በጣም ደስ የምትል ሀገር ናት። በጣም ወድጃታለሁ።
Yeah, I like Ankara actually, but I'm not thinking here to live here. But Ankara, I like it, and I will come back here.
Will you be here? Will you be here in next year?
ቀጣይ አመት ትመለሻለሽ? የውድድር ቀጣይ አመት ውድድር ትመጫለሽ?
ያው እዚህ የሚካሄድ ከሆነ እመጣለሁ።
Yeah, I will be here if there is a marathon.
Okay, thank you very much and congratulations again.
Okay, እንኳን ደስ አለሽ። እንኳን ደስ አለሽ።
ደስ ብሎኛል። አመሰግናለሁ።
Okay, thank you.
Türklerden de. Türklerden.
Özel izin gerekiyor. Yani genelkurmay
Teyden özel.
Milli Savunma Bakanlığı basına atlamışlar.
Sultan gibi saniyelik değil, sadece tebrikler için kısa bir şey olursa müsaade edelim ama böyle çok sorun yok. Yok sorun değil. Yani ilk kazanan galiba sen neden
Ne istiyorsan ama şey süre sana.
bu kadar çok detaya giremeyiz.
Bekliyoruz. Röportaj ayarlamak askeri olduğu için haber
İyi olur aslında. Vallahi iyi olur. Canlı mı verecek?
Yok yok. Haberle biz isterseniz prova da yapalım. Sor.
Ya biz bir konuşalım. Şey yapalım. Ayarlayalım.
Yok gelecekler. interview? No. Can I find if I find a translator? Yes. Okay. Okay, just a second. There's a guy who speaks your language. Okay. A little bit. If I find. Söylesene. Hı hı.
Ya kardeş hakkını helal et.
Ankara'da yapılıyor oğlum.
Tamam Ankara'da mı? Ateşin Federasyon Başkanı
Tamam, ben de yapacağım, sen de yapacaksın.
Beraber.
Sen yap. Ciddi diyorum. Yani,
Ben validen izin
yanlış
alırım.
bir cümle kurarım ben. En güzelini başkan yapar. Başkanla röportaja geçiyoruz.
Sen Özlem. Nurşat'tasın. Tamam kardeşim. Özlem.
Ceren, başkanla röportaja geçiyoruz. Hazırız.
Hazır mıyız? Sayın Başkan, Ankara'da güzel bir organizasyon, güzel bir havada. Geride kaldı. İlk kez düzenleniyor uluslararası bir yarış daha şehrimize, kentimize kazandırdık diyelim. Neler söyleyeceksiniz? Nasıl bir organizasyon oldu?
Ben öncelikle burada yarışan bütün sporcuları tebrik ediyorum. Hakikaten güzel dereceler koşuldu. Dünyanın birçok uluslararası büyük maratonunu kazanmış sporcular burada yarıştılar. Bizim sporcularımız da. Ve aynı zamanda olimpiyat ranking sistemi içerisinde olan bir yarış olması hasebiyle de sporcularımızın da ranking puanı olarak güzel puanlar aldılar. Bu anlamda tebrik ediyorum. Run Ankara yarışı Ankara için ve ülkemiz için önemli kazanımlardan birisidir. Hem Dünya Atletizm Federasyonu'nun tanıdığı hem Avrupa Atletizm Federasyonu'nun tanıdığı ve ranking sisteminde olan bir yarış. İlk kez düzenleniyor olmasına rağmen bu kadar büyük fuarıyla, tanıtımıyla, Ankara'daki yapılan organizasyonla ve katılımla hakikaten çok güzel bir organizasyon oldu. İnşallah bu organizasyonun devamı daha da güçlü olarak gelecek. Ben emeği geçen herkese teşekkür ediyorum, tebrik ediyorum. Run Ankara'ya destek olmaya devam edeceğiz. Ben başta Sayın Valimiz, Sayın Bakanımız olmak üzere herkese teşekkür ediyorum. Çünkü hakikaten bütün ekip burada. Organizasyonun şu anki katılımıyla alakalı da çok ciddi hem ulusal hem uluslararası alanda katılım oldu. Bundan sonra da büyüyerek devam edecektir. Ankara böyle güzel bir spor etkinliğine kavuşmuş oldu. Bunun devamını ve farklı organizasyonlarını da devam ettireceğiz inşallah.
Bundan yaklaşık bir ay önce toplantınızda görüşmüştük. Olimpiyat 2024 Paris Olimpiyat Oyunları geliyor ve iddialı olacağız. İddialı olarak hazırlanıyoruz demiştik. Türk sporcuların hazırlıkları nasıl? Kota aşamasında beklentileriniz nasıl Sayın Başkan?
Şimdi Türk sporcularımızın olimpiyatla ilgili hazırlıkları şu an hakikaten çok iyi noktada ve biz altyapıdan getirdiğimiz genç sporcularımızla sadece katılım anlamında değil artık madalya anlamında da hedefi olan bir ülkeyiz ve burada da inşallah bu olimpiyatta Paris'te madalya alarak ülkemize artık sadece katılım değil madalyası olan bir ülkede olmuş olacağız atletizm için. Bununla alakalı şu an 10 sporcu madalya şansı olan 10 sporcumuzu belirledik. Bunlarla ilgili çeşitli ülkelerde kim nerede en iyi hazırlanacaksa orada hazırlıklarını yapılması için geçen hafta Antalya Gloria'da ölçümlerini yaptırdık. Şimdi bu haftada herkesi kamp yapacağı merkeze gönderdik. Buralarda antrenmanlarına devam ediyorlar ve devam edecekler. Olimpiyat öncesi Avrupa Şampiyonası'nda test müsabakası ve olimpiyatta da finallerini yarışmış olacaklar. Bununla birlikte ben atletizm kota nasıl alınıyor bununla ilgili çok küçük bir bilgi vermek istiyorum. Çünkü basında çıkan bazı yanlış bilgiler var. Türkiye'de değil dünyanın her yerinde atletizmde artık kotanın verildiği özel yarışlar var. Yani her koştuğunuz yarışta kota alamıyorsunuz. Çünkü özel kota yarışları var. İşte buradaki yarış da o kotaya puan veren yarışlardan biri. Çünkü artık bir puan sistemi var. Örneğin işte dünya şampiyonasında Amerika 4x400'de rekor kırdı, dünya rekoru kırdı ama kota alamadı. Çünkü kota orada verilmiyor. Mayıs'ta Bahamalar'da verilecek 16 kotanın 14'ü. İşte Nisan'ın 21'inde yürüyüş, dünya takımlar yürüyüş şampiyonasının kotalarının 20 tane kotası Antalya'da verilecek. Yani biz bugün burada koşup dünya rekoru da kırsak belki kota alamayacağız. Çünkü kotanın alınabilmesi için de o kota yarışmalarının olduğu yerde yarışmanız gerekiyor. Bu anlamda inşallah biz de hem kota yarışmalarını hem diğer yarışmaları takip ederek çocuklarımızın kota yarışlarında yarıştırıp kota almalarını sağlamaya çalışacağız. Sağ olun, teşekkür ediyorum.
Ya ısrarla. Başkanım görüşürüz.
Özel olup yazıp duruyor. İşte
Hala yazıyor.
Olan basın toplantısı yaptık, anlattık.
Bir dakika bekle Ceren. Belki asker sporcuyla da
Bitti bitti.
şey ya çocuklar
Sultan hala burada da Ebu Bekir yok.
neyse
Bu da
başkanla
konuşmam diyor.
kapanışı yapmış olduk herhalde.
Konuşmam diyor.
Yapmıyor muyuz?
Aman
Süngeri al yeter gerisi bende.